Good morning.
Well, hello, ma'am. How are you?
So good.
So good.
The best. I'm home. I can't complain. I'm actually pretty happy to be home, so
Oh,
it's
good for
good.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's way better than being in the building with the gold man.
totally 100%.
Yeah,
Yes. And it's going to be a nice day today, so I didn't totally feel like I missed yesterday.
perfect.
Anyways, yes. All right.
Oh,
Do we know if Diane RSVP'd or not?
she did.
Yes.
Yes.
She sent a text saying she's driving and might be in the mountains by now, so she
Okay.
may or may not be able to join.
Okay.
Okay.
Was Shane going to join?
He said he was.
So we're right at 9:30. If Senator Linthicum or Sheriff Mitchell make it, so we can always loop them back in real quick. But we only scheduled half an hour, so just to be
Yeah.
respectful of everybody's time, if it's all right, I'm just going to go ahead and get us started. And um, as a reminder to everybody, just because there's more than one commissioner here, this is going to be a public meeting recorded, and media is in the room. Uh, I will call to order the Board of Commissioners in this scheduled joint work session. We have Commissioner Nichols, myself, Commissioner DeGroot, Commissioner Minty is out of the office today. Also joining us via Zoom, we have Representatives Areshki and McIntyre and City Manager from the City of Klamath Falls, Jonathan Tykert. Commissioner Nichols, you called and arranged and got all this going, so I'm going to kick it off to you for our opening remarks, and then let us know kind of where we're headed.
Absolutely. And Representatives, Jonathan, thank you for being here today. I organized this as a monthly kind of Team Klamath County huddle, a space where we can have some meaningful and efficient collaboration between the county, City of Klamath Falls, and our state legislative delegation. The goal of this is to really update each other on our priorities, coordinate where we can, share information in a transparent manner, all in a format that's open to the public and provides mutual respect and service to us and our constituents. For today, the first time we did this, the agenda, thought I'd have Commissioner DeGroot give a brief update on Klamath County's budget outlook. And after that, we'll open the floor up for any questions. And I'd like to give our legislative delegation, our sheriff, if he joins, and city manager an opportunity to talk, highlight their efforts and what they're doing, and really this is all about how we can collaborate and help each other in moving forward what's best for Klamath County as a whole. So with that being said, I'd like to give Commissioner DeGroot the floor to talk through our budget a little bit, and we have our finance director, Vicki Knoll, here as well.
Thanks. So I will keep this very high level, just in the interest of time, keep it under 5 minutes. We just got done doing or approving our budget through budget hearings last week. And I will say that Klamath County's budget outlook is grim, and we are what I would consider to be in a budgetary crisis. This year, for the first time ever, we moved the entire patrol function of the sheriff's office out of the general fund and into the road fund. A $5.4 million spend. To keep that into perspective, while we have some reserves that we've been able to set aside in that road fund, that has to take care also of the roads that it was meant for. We have 850 miles of paved road and 206 bridges. Many of those bridges are reaching the end of their useful life and need to be either repaired or replaced. A repair costs about $800,000. A replacement is about $2 million a copy. So those dollars that are set aside, which is around $26 million now, is closer to $20 million. Will be gone very quickly, and quite frankly, if we're continuing to spend them in this way, we'll put our infrastructure at risk as well. In addition to that, the other services that are provided for by the general fund, that general fund is made up of the property taxes that the county receives, along with some small amounts that come from other things like O&C timber, payment in lieu of taxes from the federal government, state forests, a couple of like tobacco funds, a couple of things like that. Also was in a deficit by the end of $1.4 million, of which we typically don't have reserves in general fund. We have a little bit of money that came in that we were able to hang on to from what was LATCF, or the Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund, which was part of the COVID dollars. That will last a couple of years and that'll be gone. It's just money that we were able to set aside. It's kind of like that manna from the federal heaven. However you feel about how those dollars were appropriated out to the country, it is what's propping up local government right now. And we don't anticipate that ever comes back, right? That was a once in a generation and or lifetime allocation to local governments that we don't see coming back. If you project out, the sheriff's function in the patrol function in the sheriff's office probably is a year, maybe two, and then it would need to be shut down if we don't have another solution. And we would do like Josephine County, Curry County, Coos County, many local or small communities that are traditionally timber dependent are doing and looking for alternative ways to keep their citizens safe. The other side, the general fund, we're just going to have to continue to work. That's not something that has necessarily a solve. We'll continue to work on that, but it's going to be difficult to see how we can pare down services, but still deliver the level of service that the citizens expect. We're very restricted. While you look at the overall budget and it says, $200 million plus, the reality is we run the majority of our functions on $18 million, maybe $20 million, depending on how it comes in. And just the jail itself is 7.5 of that. So it's difficult. So that's a pretty high level just shot at the budget outlook for the county. But happy to take any questions that you might have.
I would like to add on that. Yes, the budget is very much about money in, money out. But I also see it as a moral document and where we're prioritizing our efforts within services to our community. Part of that function is we asked all of our departments to make a 30% cut across the board. We didn't hit that in every single department. Some departments, if they're only 2 people, they've got no room to cut. And then we prioritized our public safety functions and keeping them as whole as we could. And that was really the priority within the budget process. So again, if our state delegation or Jonathan have any questions, please ask.
I do. I always have questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So how did we get here? Was it just that we're having more money going out, rising costs of benefits, pay? Like, how did we get to where we're now really looking at this deficit? How did we get here?
Yeah, so I think that there's a series of things that have happened over the course of the last handful of years. I'll tell you this. So property taxes in Klamath County have stayed either flat or declined over the course of the last several years. So people will recall Measure 5, 45, and 50 kind of limits what property taxes can or cannot do. And sometimes we expect that, hey, that 3% annual increase that everybody says will happen, we expect that to keep up with the level of services. So there's 2 things. Number one, 3% doesn't keep up with the level of inflation we saw over the course of the last 3-4 years. That didn't happen. And number 2, our property taxes either stayed flat or declined for a series of different things. Whether that is the removal of a dam that costs the taxpayers money, that is the revaluation of the Ruby pipeline, which they devalued, the Department of Revenue devalued the pipeline by nearly $1 billion with a B. or it's water that does not make it onto irrigated ag land, so you have to decrease the value of that land, or those types of things. We've actually had a tremendous amount of success in our economic development efforts. A lot of businesses, jobs, and new properties being built in our community. And if not for that, we would be in much worse shape than we are today. On top of that, you have two other things that have happened. One is the, Secure Rural Schools has not been reauthorized. We are back on timber receipts, where we traditionally receive $6 million in Secure Rural Schools from the federal government. This year, the payment from the Forest Service side of that function was about $400,000. So we went from 6 million to 400,000. In addition, you have just tremendously rising costs, right? And I think all of us understand what those look like. Labor has gone up a lot so that you can be competitive enough to where you can actually keep people on staff. We are still, I would say, in Klamath County, in many areas, including law enforcement, not as competitive as we need to be to retain and recruit real talent in order to keep us safe. And the materials and services have gone up. So you have this divergence of the level of income or revenues that we're receiving at the county and the rising cost to deliver the same level of services that citizens are used to. And so that divergence is creating quite the gap in our funding, right? So we have a huge deficit. We've had deficits in the past where we've spent, between 1.8 and 2.2 million dollars in road funds in order to preserve that patrol function in the sheriff's office. And we've had what I would say kind of this artificial prop up by all the ridiculous money that came out through COVID and propped up local governments. So that divergence continued to grow while we were being artificially propped up by these dollars coming in. And so when you shut that off like a spigot, the truth reveals itself that this divergence is how large that divergence is. So I've been screaming at the rooftops for many years about this projection, and now it's like, hey guys, remember, we're here. So,
Representative Reschke? We can't hear you, sir. You're muted.
there you go.
Commissioner DeGroot, you mentioned the Ruby pipeline being devalued by $1 billion by Department of Revenue. When did that happen?
I would have to get back to you on an exact date, but that's about 18 months ago, I believe that happened.
Okay, I'd like to dig into that. As Vice Chair on House Revenue, I have a very good relationship with Department of Revenue,
Okay.
and I would like to work with you in figuring out A, why that happened, and B, if we can get it back.
Absolutely, and I can tell you Lake County suffered greatly with that devaluation as well.
Yes.
It sold, so the Ruby pipeline sold, and as part of that transaction, there was a devaluation.
Okay. Let's get together on that and figure out that, because I think I think we can do something.
Yeah. Happy to help.
I'm under the understanding that Secure Rural Schools funding may be coming back. So if that comes back, what does that look like for the budget?
So I would say two things. Number one, my last trip back to DC, I would say that there is a desire to reauthorize Secure Rural Schools. There is a lack of an idea of where that funding would necessarily come from. Right now, Congress is really trying to balance the budget, and going back for asks is hard. It's not an enormous number. It's about $275 million for the entire country. I'd say 50 million of that comes to Oregon. Why so much?
Right.
Well, this is where the trees are, right? So that's
Right.
what it was originally intended for. If for some reason it would come back, it doesn't solve the general fund issue that we have, but it would give us some temporary breathing room in our law enforcement function. Some very temporary breathing room. it's still intended, or was intended, to provide for, in fact, the federal legislation directs it directly to schools, roads, and bridges. We receive a check, we give 25% of that to the general school fund, it goes to schools, and then we retain the rest for roads and bridges. There's Oregon legislation that was passed by the Oregon legislature that allows 7 rural counties to use those dollars also for public safety functions. And I believe there's a bill in the House to expand that to other counties as well. I don't know the bill number. I think some folks over in Grant County are kind of leading the charge on that.
Right. That was passed in 2017, and I know then Representative Brock Smith and myself were chief sponsors on that bill. So, yeah.
And the use of those dollars for law enforcement functions is controversial. And you look at, like, this year, $5.5 million. If we did get a payment, it would be nearly all of it is going to law enforcement and not to infrastructure, which we have several hundred million in infrastructure upgrade liability as well. I think it's also important to point out the value of that legislation represents today, what, 22% of what it originally did. So it's not where it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
What's happened at Secure Rural Schools over the years is, in order to get it reauthorized, which it has to do every 3 years since 2001, you've had to add different types of communities so that you can get the votes in Congress in order to get it done. But they haven't increased the allocation. So it dilutes the pot. And in fact, they started putting it on a decline so that it went down every year, because it was always meant to be a transition to wean us off of the dependence on timber, which that was never going to happen, right? So we need to get back in the woods. That's the solve. But if you account for a very modest inflation number, today it represents about 22% of what it originally did in 2001. So I call Secure Rural Schools the slow bleed to bankruptcy.
So just to kind of it's interesting to me that we switched law enforcement over to the road fund.
Yeah.
That was just the way that it had to happen. I just don't know. Like, I know there's specified things that you can and cannot spend money on, and so that it's newly switched over to the road fund, so it was in the general fund dollars. So I'm just kind of trying to understand the reallocation and the switch over.
There's a history of it, going all the way back, I think, to like over a decade ago, maybe 12 years ago, when we first got that authority to do that. And that's just kind of been hit or miss depending on how things come in. It's just now the entire function is over there. There's essentially the patrol function had to get kicked out of the general fund, or we had to shut it down. And that's the only other pot you can go to. There's no other place you can go.
The general fund is only supporting the mandated services that we have to do at about the minimum level we can afford, or the maximum level, which is the minimum level of service.
Yeah.
And a majority of that general fund right now is going to keep the correctional facility, the jail, open and running.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I know we keep hearing from our Democratic colleagues about Measure 5 and 50 and the impacts of that measure. And I struggle with it a little bit because I don't necessarily want there to just be free reign of raising property taxes when a county gets a whim, that they want to have a circus in town or something. So I get a little bit nervous about it. But at the same time, I think when we're looking at this and all the things going on, I think that there could be something to having another look at it. So,
well, there has to be. It's not just us, and Jonathan can attest to this, I'm sure. I mean, it's all local government, especially in the rural areas, are trying to figure out solutions to services.
Yeah,
and it's tough.
Yeah.
Right. I think the killer in this situation is inflation. And so inflation is just the worst thing you can have, especially when you have a cap on the revenue growth of your organization. And so while your costs start spinning out of control, the amount of revenue you can raise is limited. And so I would argue that the last 4 years of inflation have really hurt local governments the most in Oregon. At the state level, we have many of the brackets are indexed to inflation except for the top one and the corporate rate. And so the state has been a beneficiary of inflation because it can right size to what is happening on the revenue side. And what we see is a disproportionate imbalance right now with a lot of state dollars and not enough local dollars. And one of the things that I know the representative and I are trying to do is to find ways to bring money back from the state to local governments to keep us whole.
Yeah, I just kind of giving if you take the two numbers that we had to deficit spend this year, it's about 6.8. And if you project out, I did some kind of back of the napkin math. I was just talking to Vicki Knoll, our finance director and treasurer. We're going to do a new 5-year projection, but I would say that number, if you said same level of services, no new revenues in 5 years, that number's over 10 million.
Yeah.
Right, so there has to be a solution.
Yeah.
Or you just
That's
shut
right.
down services. And the services that you can shut down all have to do with public safety. The general fund has essentially two functions, and that is the administrative functions, elections, tax assessment and collection, other small stuff, emergency management, some of the other administrative functions, but not much. I mean, those are all really little, but the rest of it's all public safety, which is juvenile, district attorney's office, and the jail. If you add up the jail, the DA's office, and juvenile, that's probably right about the total amount of what we take in property taxes. Just those three functions.
Let me ask real quick on the assessor's office, how well are they staffed? Are they understaffed? I know there's a bill in revenue right now that would add more money to the pot, so assessors would be able to do their job better, which would then, the hope would be is to find, more revenue in the property tax system as it exists right now.
In my tenure here over the course of the last 9 years, we've reduced staff levels to the bare minimum. We are now just basically playing defense, and that's where you end up with mistakes and probably missed revenue, right? Missed revenue.
Yes, that's exactly what the thinking is without this this augmentation. So, that's good to know. That bill is still in play, and again, it would put some general fund money in there, and then there's some other options, again, to go to the assessors so that they can make sure that counties are collecting the revenue they're due, as opposed to, like you say, playing defense or missing out.
Yeah. And a lot of money goes, it's not just the county, right? So we collect all of the taxes for every municipality.
Special districts,
schools.
Yeah.
And the schools are crying for more money from you guys. Well, if local government could properly assess everything, then we wouldn't have such a problem. We'd be collecting more money for schools.
Right. Okay, that's good intel. Thanks.
Yep.
So, on a side note, Rep. Bresky, do you want to maybe give a legislative update on things that you are keeping an eye on that? We only have a few minutes left, so I figured I'll just switch into that. If there's anything too that the commissioners want to know about that we might be able to update you on.
Sure. So my focus is typically on taxes, and so a lot of tax proposals in in one proposal for fixing ODOT budget crisis, increased gas taxes, tire taxes. There's a wildfire funding bill that we heard yesterday that it has a bottle bill tax in it. So it's just tax. And I think that's not necessarily the proper way to go. There's a lot of room for improvement, especially at ODOT, to not have to do that, but keep them whole. So That's what I'm watching for right now. Democrats have the votes. If all of them voted in a block to pass anything they want, whether it's policy or tax increases, they can get to the 3/5 majority. So it's going to be how that plays out in the next 7 weeks. Also, on May 14th, which is a Wednesday, is the revenue forecast. And when that hits, then budgets start getting cemented, because now we know the Ways and Means knows how much money they have to spend for the next biennium, and they will run quickly to lock those budgets up, get them out of committee, onto the floors, and passed. So after the 14th, we'll take our marathon shoes off and put back on our sprinting shoes, as we have like a 5-week sprint to the finish line.
Representative, a question on the transportation package. I've heard rumblings that the legislature is looking at changing the funding formula, the 50, 30, 20. Are you hearing anything about that?
That's been a rumor. I don't think it's in the Democrat proposal, and it's certainly not in the Republican proposal. That seems to be sacrosanct, and so I don't see that being touched at all. It was talked about early on, but I haven't seen any appetite to modify that.
Very good.
Go ahead. No, go.
I would just, part of this meeting, and I would like to add, please, Representative Reschke, Representative McIntyre, and Senator Lithcom, if she listens later, have your administrative assistants on these important bills that, as they're moving through, please have them reach out in areas that can help Klamath County, because anytime I can, I will offer testimony. I'm so busy with the county that I don't have the bandwidth to track everything that you guys are doing at the legislature. I'd love to, but I just don't. And those things, like the gas taxes and the bottle bills, when they're coming through, please reach out to us. Let us know when things are, or your assistance, and we would be happy to help you and your caucus in this area for our county.
I appreciate that. It's also kind of crazy for us as well, and that's why I actually would love to start setting this structure up so that the next time we do this, and honestly through the interim, I know I always get the eye rolls when I'm like, we need to be meeting more, and nobody likes it when I say that, but I'm like, if we don't meet more, we don't know. So I would really like to make sure that these meetings continue, and maybe through session, because I just feel like Klamath, the feedback that we received, which I felt was very sincere from the roadshow last Friday, was the need was so acute in Klamath, and it was a very different feeling than the other roadshows that they went to. And I definitely feel that of our county, that we have a great need, yet we somehow we band together and we make it happen. You know, by the skin of our teeth, we are making it happen. And so I just really feel that the more that we can communicate and be aware of what's going on and know your needs. I don't remember what committee Senator Lithcom is on. I think she's on early childhood and behavioral health. She's on healthcare. And then I don't know her third committee. Do you know, Rep. Reschke?
I do not. I'll look it up real quick.
So we don't have anybody here that is on housing, and I think that would be really pertinent for us to be able to be on housing, to be able to help you guys, to help all of us, quite frankly. I'm on education, early childhood and human services as well, and then behavioral health and healthcare. So I'm in the healthcare realm and looking at some of that stuff. We are looking at the corporate practice of medicine bill, which is going to start regulating how much corporations can own in a medical business versus a physician. It does cut the hospitals out of it, which is incredibly important in Klamath County, as Sky Lakes is really having to prop up and support the majority of our medical care in Klamath County. I do believe that there will be a hospitals bill coming forward, but there's a lot of caution around that. No one wants to make healthcare more difficult or less accessible. Everyone wants to make it easier, more affordable, and easier access. So there's a lot of thought going into that. Of course, we continue to try to figure out ways to regulate PBMs to make sure that our rural pharmacies stay open. It looks like that bill I thought was dead. It is trying to come back to life. I'm not sure exactly how that looks in Klamath. We did and are, I believe, we passed it out of the House, the 340B bill. It is over in the Senate. I don't know exactly where it is right now, and I couldn't tell you the bill number, but if you type in OLIS, the bill text. And I just want to make sure, that you guys know how to navigate OLIS, how to use that system. If you don't, okay, good. A lot of people don't and don't really know, the bills. The bold is new, the italics is delete, and the regular print means that's current law. So we get some confusion on that. So just, wanting to know what we're looking at, you're looking at, we're all speaking the same language. But if you type in 340B into the bill text, you'll
2385. 2385 is the bill number, yeah.
So Sky Lakes, I know, and we have an FQHC in Klamath, they greatly benefit from the 340B program. If that bill does not pass, things continue status quo. I do not believe that there will be a change. If there is a change, please let us know. If that bill does pass, it will expand that program, but there will be some other consequences that go along with that. So there is that. We also have a bill, I believe it's in labor and business, all the committee names kind of changed around, that is unemployment for strike workers. So that
Senate Bill 916.
So
I just don't get that one at all.
And I think that's going to be problematic for local governments as well.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very problematic.
It encourages unions to strike is what it does.
Yep, it
Yeah.
does, because you can get paid while you're striking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that may have already had a public hearing. If it didn't, I would greatly recommend you guys looking up submitting testimony, giving testimony. If you choose to take a road trip, I am sure there will be a very long list of people signed up to testify on that. But if you choose to road trip, you will be coming from greater than 100 miles away, so you will get priority to speak.
Yeah, it has had a public hearing. Sorry, Rep. McIntyre.
No, you're fine.
Has had a public hearing, but you still can submit testimony. The button for doing that is still open. So that's Senate Bill 916.
So I'd really recommend that, and I would maybe even recommend sending a letter to the committee members, an email.
Yeah.
Don't letter, an email stating your concerns.
Yeah.
Would be great, aside from testimony, because I'm going to assume there's probably hundreds of testimonies online.